Winning Blueprint presents.
It's the Redskins Report, so it's everything Redskins and anything of the sort. The 2012 Washington Redskins, your NFC East champions, the Redskins Report.
Welcome, Redskins Nation. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. This is the Redskins Report, and I'm here to break down the 2013 NFL Draft for the Washington Redskins. As we all know, Day 1 will occur today. Look, Redskins don't have a first-round pick, so there won't be a lot of activity coming out of D.C. I don't see the Redskins trading up into the first round. A, we don't have any money to pay a first-round pick. And B, there's no reason to come up in this draft. For what the Redskins are looking for, yeah, you could get better value in the first round, but you're going to get a good player at 51, which is exactly what the Redskins are looking for. So for the Redskins, keeping the cost down is very vital this season, as well as a player that you can use that can help you right away will come to you at 51 because of the position that you're looking for and the value and depth in this draft. You should be fine at 51 getting what you need and not having to pay a very hefty price tag for it. So it kind of benefits the Redskins not having a first-round pick because we simply don't have any money to pay a first-round pick unless we wanted to cut a few guys or restructure some more deals. And as we all know, the Redskins really don't like restructuring deals if they don't have to, and they've already done that several times in this offseason. So they're trying to refrain from having to do that anymore. So it's very important that the Redskins have this pick in the second round. It's actually a blessing in disguise. And so I'm going to quickly break down how I think the draft is going to turn out for the Washington Redskins, and then we'll just get out of here. I'm not going to talk you to death. It's going to be less about me and more about the board. So you might not see me as much, but you're going to see this board. The 7th round selection is a little light, a little faint. You might not be able to see it, but I'll explain it to you anyway, so you should be fine on that front. So without any further ado, let's hit the board. Talk about these picks and these selections and what I think is going to happen. I'm going to tell you what I think should happen and then what's probably more likely to happen. But either way, here's what I think the Redskins draft is going to look like over the next 3 days. Okay, so I'm here with the Redskins 2013 Draft Board, and behind me is the actual picks that I think are going to take place, when they're going to take place. So you look at the board that I have, and this is my trusty, handy, dandy big board, and I'm using it to explain this draft the way I think it's going to break down for the Redskins. You look at the rounds, they're over here. The picks are here, players, the schools that they're coming from, and the positions that they play. I'm going to be using my handy, dandy, trusty. Everything is handy, dandy, and trusty. Big board behind me, pointer in front of you, and I'm going to go through these picks the way I think they should break down and what actually and ultimately I think the Redskins will have to do with these picks, because some of these players, frankly, won't be at that pick for the Redskins to select. But if I had it my way, these are the players that I would like to see selected. So you start with the second round. Our first pick overall in the draft is in the second round at 51. So you look, second round, 51st overall selection. Player that I think the Redskins want at 51 would be DJ Swearinger. Strong safety or safety, because in this day and age, there's really not a big designation between free safety and strong safety. You just pick them and whatever best suits them, you put them in the game, and they can be playing a little bit of free and strong, so it really doesn't matter. But he's more of a strong safety, is DJ Swearinger. This is a guy out of South Carolina that his height maybe isn't what you would really be looking for, but I don't pay attention to height at the safety position. Yes, it'd be nice if your safety could be 6'2" like Sean Taylor was, but look, at the end of the day, he was a one-of-a-kind athlete. You're not going to get a 6'2" guy all the time. DJ Swearinger is measured and listed at 5'11", but this guy's probably more like 5'10". But his game at South Carolina was predicated on intimidation. This guy was a big hitter and is a big hitter. Very aggressive, very physical. Can push it a little at times. I mean, he can really kind of teeter on the edge of getting a penalty because of his aggressiveness sometimes. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as he knows how to bottle that up and channel that energy into positive energy on the field. I don't have a problem with that. But this guy, DJ Swearinger, is a hitter. He will attack you. He will attack the football. He doesn't mind making plays on the football. But his element, what he's best at, is going and hitting receivers, hitting ball carriers. Not so much the best guy in coverage, but he can play the football. But his speed isn't top end. But again, in this draft, the safety position isn't particularly fast. So you're not going to get a guy with top end speed, especially at 51. You're not really going to get a burner there. So Swearinger is probably who the Redskins want. Physical safety, 5'10", not afraid to hit, can make a play on the football, who I want to see the Redskins draft, who I think is more likely that the Redskins are going to draft, because Swearinger might not be there at 51. He's a guy that could go early in the second round. I like Phillip Thomas, safety out of Fresno State. And he's more of a free safety. But again, I don't care about designations. Free safety, strong safety, makes me no difference. Put him in the game, let him play. I like Phillip Thomas. Here's a guy from Fresno State. He's more about the size you're looking for at the safety position. He's 6 foot. He's rangy. He's a little faster than DJ Swearinger. Now, is he going to hit you like Swearinger is? Probably not. But he will play the football more than Swearinger will. You look at Phillip Thomas and his production last year at Fresno. Here's a guy that got you 8 interceptions. Led the nation in interceptions, did Phillip Thomas. He can tackle. He needs to get a little stronger. But that's what the NFL is for. Get with the weight coach and conditioning program. He'll get a little stronger, put on a little bit more weight. I like Phillip Thomas and his size. I like his ability to make plays on the football. He can tackle. I'm not saying that he can't. He's just not as physical and aggressive as Swearinger. But I think Phillip Thomas is the guy that I would want. If we can get him at 51, if he is available at 51, I'd love to see the Redskins draft Phillip Thomas. Here's a guy that was playing really good football at Fresno in his sophomore year, junior year, broke his leg and really messed his ankle up a little bit. Missed essentially his whole junior season, came back and played his senior year and lit it up with the 8 interceptions. It was all WAC conference. And I mean, the guy just played some really good football at Fresno. Look, Phillip Thomas is the guy that I want at 51. DJ Swearinger is probably the guy the Redskins want at 51. Either way, I think one of these two guys will be a Washington Redskin come Friday evening. I'm hoping it's Phillip Thomas. It could be DJ Swearinger. If I had to pick, if you put a gun to my head and you made me pick one of these guys and say, hey, this is going to be the pick at 51, I'm going with DJ Swearinger. I think that's who the Redskins ultimately will get in this draft. I hope I'm wrong, because I really want Phillip Thomas, to be honest with you. But I think Swearinger is going to be the pick at 51. Look at the 3rd round. So we're moving down. 3rd round. 85th pick. I've got 3 players listed here. Any one of these three players, I think, can go to the Redskins at 85. Now, I got a lot of questions about Tyrann Mathieu and should the Redskins draft him. And so I had to put him on the list. Do I think the Redskins will actually draft him? Do I think Mike Shanahan will pull the trigger on a guy like Tyrann Mathieu? He's one of the most polarizing players in this draft. You either love him, you hate him. You either have him high on your board or he's not even on your board at all. And so you can't deny the ability there. The Honey Badger can play football. It's the off-the-field issues that have coaches worried. He lit up the combine. He showed that he can play ball. Now, the stature, 5'9", it's a little short. But again, if you can play football, the size to me doesn't matter. We're not asking him to go out wide and play against the Calvin Johnsons and Julio Jones of the world. I'm asking him to go in the slot. And so maybe he can go out wide in a pinch. Sure. But what I'm looking for from him right now, if we were to draft him, would be to get in a slot. And do I think that he's really an option at 85? Yes, I do. Now, I think there's a possibility that somebody might take this guy off the board at the end of the second round. It's very possible. And then again, keep in mind, the Redskins don't select until 85. So, because the Redskins pick at 85 and the third round starts at 65, we could conceivably miss out on Tyrann Mathieu in the third round. But if he's there, I think Mike Shanahan actually would take him. Now, listen to my reasoning. Listen to my logic here. Third round, troublesome guy. Can play football, but has a sketchy past. Sound familiar? Mike Shanahan was the guy that took Maurice Clarett in the third round out of Ohio State. Remember, he didn't play football the year before because he tried to challenge the NFL drafting eligibility rules. He failed, was denied by the Supreme Court, him and Mike Williams. He got into some trouble at Ohio State, was dismissed from the school. Remember, he got an agent, so he couldn't go back and play anyway, wasn't athletically eligible. And so he had got into some trouble, dismissed from school, much like Tyrann Mathieu, and he didn't play football the year before. Still drafted by Mike Shanahan in the third round. So don't be surprised if Mike Shanahan pulls the trigger on a guy like Tyrann Mathieu. Now look, yes, he does have a sketchy past. And we already have a weed smoker on the team. And we really don't need another one. Hell, we've got several. So, A, we would have to keep him away from Tenard Jackson. That would be number one. B, I think our locker room could handle a guy like Tyrann Mathieu. I think we have enough veteran players and enough of a veteran presence to keep a guy like Tyrann Mathieu in check. So, is he worth the risk? Sure. Will I think the Redskins will pull the trigger on him if he's there? Sure. Will he be there is the question. That's what you got to ask yourself. I think that Mathieu will not be there. I don't think he will. I think some team will like him somewhere at the end of the second round, early third round. And I don't think we'll get a chance to pull the trigger on him. But if he's there, I think he's a Redskin. I really do. Cornerback out of LSU. So now you look at a guy that I think we should get, and I really want. If I had to choose between Tyrann Mathieu and Jordan Poyer, and that's the guy that I really want, Poyer, out of Oregon State, cornerback. He's about 6 foot, long, athletic, can make plays on the football. I really like Jordan Poyer a lot. If you haven't seen him, look him up. This guy can play football. He can run. He can catch. He makes plays on the football. Not afraid to tackle. Not afraid to stick his nose in there. I think he's been rising up draft boards with his workout and what he's been able to do in his senior season. Jordan Poyer, I think, has opened some eyes. He had a solid combine as well. And so I won't be surprised if he's not there at 85 either. He could easily go in the second round, could Jordan Poyer. And so if he's not available, B.W. Webb, cornerback out of William and Mary, would be my next option at 85. And he will be there. B.W. Webb, I think, will be there at 85 for the Redskins to select. He's a smaller corner. He's more along the lines of 5'10", 5'11". But to me, of all three of these guys, B.W. Webb is the most explosive of these athletes. B.W. Webb has a smaller frame, but he's very, very explosive. You look at B.W. Webb, and he can pick the football off. He can go up and get it. He's not afraid to challenge receivers. His problem is he didn't play a lot of man coverage in college. And so you kind of worry about guys that didn't play a lot of man coverage. He played a lot of off coverage. And he played a lot of zone coverage. So in zone, this guy's dangerous because he can run. He's explosive. But in man coverage, he has trouble finding the football. And he hasn't played a lot of man coverage, so he's not familiar with it. So that's another thing you would have to coach him up on. But I like B.W. Webb out of William & Mary. He's a smaller corner, but the most explosive out of these guys. Jordan Poyer, for me, is the one that I really want. Liken him to a guy like Cortland Finnegan. The way he plays, I think Jordan Poyer is the guy that I would target at 85. Tyrann Mathieu, I don't think he'll be there. But if he is, I think that's a guy the Redskins would definitely consider drafting at 85. If you had to ask me which one of these players I think the Redskins would get at 85 most likely, I'd have to go with B.W. Webb. Even though I much prefer Jordan Poyer, I think that Mathieu won't be there. Poyer probably won't be there. We'll probably have to settle for a guy like B.W. Webb at 85. You look at the fourth round. So we're here now. Fourth round, 119. I got two selections here in the fourth round. Ryan Swope, receiver out of Texas A&M. Now look, I did my homework on this guy last year because I thought the Redskins were going to select Ryan Tannehill in the draft. And so I was watching a lot of Texas A&M football, and I really fell in love with Ryan Swope. I love his game. He's not the fastest guy. I think his 40 time is very deceptive because at the combine he ran a 4.34 40. Blazing. The guy can run. I've seen him run at college, and at times he'll run away from defenders. But I don't think that's really his game. I think he's more along the lines of a guy that's probably a 4.4 5 40 type of guy, which is still fast. So he doesn't play as fast as his time says he does, but he's a fast guy. And in the slot, this guy is a machine. I think that if we can get Ryan Swope, keep in mind Santana Moss is probably on his last days in Washington. I don't know how much longer he's going to be on the roster. Trust me, I'm not trying to get rid of the Tanner man yet, but got to remember, he's got one foot out the door. We got to start replacing guys at the receiver position. I like Ryan Swope a lot, and if he's there, I'd love to see the Redskins take him. This is a guy that can get in and out of his breaks, catches everything, and he's very tough with the football. I love Ryan Swope. Will he be there at 119 is the question. Not sure if he'll be there or not. Teams like the Cowboys are in front of us that would love to take a guy like Ryan Swope, and he's right in their backyard. He might not be there at 119. You look at Bakari Rambo, safety out of Georgia. This guy is a knucklehead. That's number one. He's another weed smoker. So, again, you don't want to take too many of these guys. So if you get Tyrann Mathieu, Bakari Rambo isn't an option here to me at 119 because you can't take two of them. Can't take two guys that have a problem with substance abuse. So you only can take one or the other. You get Tyrann Mathieu, Bakari Rambo is off your board. You don't get Tyrann Mathieu, then Bakari Rambo is an option at 119. I don't think you're getting Mathieu at 85. So at 119, I think Bakari Rambo, safety out of Georgia, he's got great upside. Okay, the tackling isn't quite what you would like it to be, but he will come up and stick it to you. He will hit you in the mouth. I like his ball skills, though. Much like Phillip Thomas, Bakari Rambo can go after the football. He can make some plays. Is he the fastest guy? No. Is he the most instinctive guy? Maybe. Not quite sure if it's more instincts or is he just a gambler. There's a difference. I think he's more of a gambler than he is an instincts guy. Either way, he makes plays on the football. But when you gamble, there's a chance that you can get beat. He's got a lot of potential. If he's coached up properly and can keep his head straight and stay away from the weed, we could have a player at 119 in Bakari Rambo. If I had to choose between the two picks, I want Ryan Swope. Who do I think we will get at 119? It's most likely that we'll get Bakari Rambo with our 4th round selection at 119. So you look at our 5th round selection. And this is where I start narrowing it down to one player. I think this is exactly who we're going to get at that pick. You get to the 5th round and we have 2 selections. One at 154 and we got the Patriots pick at 162. So you look at these 2 picks. And at 154 in the 5th round, I have the Redskins selecting LeVar Edwards, defensive end out of LSU. You look at our defensive line, and I think it's really solid. We could use some help at defensive end. And I think LeVar Edwards is a very intriguing prospect out of LSU. You look at that defensive line at LSU, and you think about Montgomery, and you think about Mingo. But this guy is unheralded in LeVar Edwards. Wasn't a highly sought-after guy coming out of high school. And he just went about his business very human-like. When he got in the game, he could be over-aggressive at times because he was fighting for playing time at LSU with a lot of talented guys. But when he got in, he made his mark. And so I think LeVar Edwards is a guy that you could get in the 5th round, 6'4", 277 pounds. So he's going to be stout at the point of attack. He could get a little stronger, sure. But again, when you get in the league, you'll fill out your frame to its maximum potential. I think that he got about 6 or 7 sacks at LSU last year in limited duty, so that means he can get to the quarterback. I like the production there. I like the fact that he played at a big school and got it done, and he did not start. So there's potential there with LeVar Edwards. I don't know if he's a starter in this league, but I know that he's another guy that can come in and give you rotational depth along that defensive line. The Redskins have stayed relatively healthy along their defensive line, but remember, we lost Adam Carricker last year. And remember, Jarvis Jenkins got hurt 2 years ago, and so you need to have that depth along the defensive line. Chris Neal got hurt last year as well. So what I'm saying is we need to make sure we have enough defensive ends. I'm not sure if I'm in love with a guy like Doug Worthington that we've been playing at the defensive end position out of Ohio State the last couple of years. So I like LeVar Edwards there. I think he's going to be there at 154. And I think that's what the Redskins will do with their 5th round selection, the first of 2 of them in that round. You look at the 2nd selection for the Redskins in the 5th round, 162. We're looking at a corner, and I think they're going to go and double dip with the cornerback position. I think they're going to get one in round 3. And I think they're going to come back and get one with that 2nd pick in round 5. And this time I have them selecting Brandon McGee, cornerback out of Miami. And I think that he's a guy that did not really play up to the standards that many were holding for him at Miami. So there's a little bit of that factor there. He's athletic. We're talking about a 5'11 type of corner. Very fast. I think he ran like a 4.38 40, 4.41 40 at the combine. So he can run. He can move. And that's always what you want. You want a guy with top-end speed. And I think McGee gives you that. One of his biggest issues is finding the ball. I don't really like guys that can't find the football. Because when you can't find the football, guess what that leads to? Pass interference. And that was one of his problems in college. He was a little touchy, a little grabby, couldn't find the football at times. And so he'd run into receivers. You can coach that out of players, though. Sometimes it's hard to teach guys to look for the football. Either you do or you don't. But if McGee can find the football at the next level, I think he's going to be a really good player. He can make plays on the football. I like Brandon McGee, and I think he'll be there at 162. And he could be a guy that the Redskins get. Look, we just need as many bodies at the corner and safety position as possible. I think we need to double dip at both of those positions. I think the Redskins are going to take a safety at their first pick in the draft in round 2. And I think the Redskins are going to take a safety in round 4 as well. So I think the Redskins will double up at safety, and I think the Redskins will double up at the cornerback position in 3 and 5. So even numbers, 2 and 4, safety. Odd numbers, 3 and 5, cornerback position is what I think the Redskins will look to do. So we get to the 6th round, and we're here now. 6th round, 191st pick in the draft. And I have 2 players listed in the 6th round. And here's my logic and my thinking here. If we don't get Swope in the 4th round, or we don't decide to go receiver anywhere up here, because if we don't go receiver in the 4th round, I can see the Redskins skipping over the receiver position up until the 6th round altogether. And you keep asking yourself, well, why do we need a receiver? We have plenty of them, and we do. But you can never have enough, and there's always a need for competition. You always get the best player available on your board. After the 3rd round, I think the Redskins in the 4th round and beyond start drafting best player available on their board. And so in the 6th round, I think the Redskins are looking at the tackle position first. And Winston Painter, Virginia Tech tackle, is a very interesting prospect at 191 in the 6th round. He's a bit of a project because he's very raw. He started playing football in his freshman year of high school, so there's a lot of learning to do for Painter. But you look at this guy, we're talking about 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 320 pounds, runs a 4.9 40, so you know he's very athletic. Very impressed with his combine. I watched the tape on him at Virginia Tech. He moves well. He could be a little bit better, but of course, he's raw. So there's going to be some holes and deficiencies in his game right now. I feel like the Redskins have enough tackles to where this guy could be on the practice squad, learn how to play the position, and then maybe be ready in a year or two. And I think he fits the zone blocking scheme. And so he could be an interesting pick in the 6th round at 191. But here's the wild card for me, and a guy that I think the Redskins definitely might be interested in taking. Denard Robinson, wide receiver, running back / athlete, Michigan. Now, we all remember Denard Robinson being a quarterback in college. Well, we know he's not playing the quarterback position at the next level. So he's been making the transition from quarterback to running back / receiver. And to me, I put him in the athlete category because he's just going to be on the field doing it all. You get value here in a guy that probably can return punts for you, kickoffs, can run the football out of the backfield as well as catch it out of the backfield. Now, he's got work to do at every position I just named. Kickoff, punt returns, running back, receiver. He's got work to do with all of them. But he's put on weight, so he's not a flimsy 170 guy. He's more around 195, 200. So that's a good weight. And he can run. We know this guy is fast. He's got speed. So I like this pick. And keep in mind that Brandon Banks is gone. He's not coming back. And we could use a guy in the Brandon Banks type of mold to fill in that kind of gadgety, wildcatty type of role on the Redskins roster. Here's a guy that you could stick in the game and he could throw a little trick pass here and there. Redskins love doing that kind of stuff. Also, he could catch the football on little bubble screens and be explosive out in space. Redskins could use another return guy. Remember, we had Niles Paul returning back kickoffs. Denard Robinson could do that. You look at punts. Last year, I think we found a guy in Richard Crawford to do that. But again, Denard Robinson could do that. Who knows? You also look at a guy that can give you a couple of plays out of the backfield. We run that spread kind of look with Robert Griffin III. Here's another guy you could stick in the backfield and not know if he's throwing it, running it. It gives you another dimension. I think the Redskins are probably intrigued by Robinson late in the draft. If he's there at 191 in the 6th round, I think the Redskins might take a flyer out on Denard Robinson. If we don't get Swope or any receiver up here early in the draft, I think Denard Robinson is where we'll go in the 6th round. If we already have a receiver by the 6th round, then I think we'll go with Vincent Painter, tackle out of Virginia Tech. So those are the two scenarios. So for me, Denard Robinson is the pick in the 6th round because I don't think we'll get Swope or a receiver, for that matter, anywhere in the first 5 rounds. You look at round 7, and it's kind of light, but I'll explain it to you anyway. 7th round, 228th pick in the draft. Vince Williams, Florida State linebacker, inside linebacker. And I think that this is a guy that's solid. Inside gives you depth at the linebacker position. Is he a starter in this league? No. No, not at all. But he's a guy that's going to give us depth and can play special teams. And you need that. We got to replace Lorenzo Alexander on our roster. Right now, I think that guy is Brian Keel for us. But at some point, we're going to need someone that is going to play special teams for us to be a core special teamer. Vince Williams could be that guy. Come in, could play some linebacker inside in a pinch. But I think that he's a guy that gives you added value on special teams. And you could always use bodies at the linebacker position. You always got to remember and keep in mind that once you get to this back portion of the draft, these guys have a long shot of making the roster. And so I think Vince Williams, if he comes in and presses the coaches on special teams, he's a guy that could make the roster as a guy that's a core special teamer. But that's it in a nutshell for the Redskins and their draft. I think that in the second round, we're going to get a safety. That's a lock. We're getting a safety. It's just who will be there for the Redskins to draft. Will it be a guy like DJ Swearinger, or will it be Phillip Thomas? I'm hoping it's Phillip Thomas. It's probably going to be Swearinger. Look at the third round. Tyrann Mathieu, if he's there, I think that's a really good option for the Redskins, and one that I think Mike Shanahan will pull the trigger. We've seen past history with him drafting Maurice Clarett in the third round, a guy that had a troublesome past, was sitting there, no one else wanted to take. Shanahan took him in the third round. We're sitting there in the third round. Mathieu could be there. I think if he's there, I think Shanahan would take him with that pick. But to be more realistic, I don't think he'll be there. I don't think the guy that I want, Jordan Poyer, will be there, the 6-foot corner out of Oregon State. I'm thinking we're going to have to settle for a guy like B.W. Webb. That's not a bad consolation prize, but I'd much rather have a guy like Jordan Poyer or Tyrann Mathieu with that pick. You also look at the fourth round. I think the Redskins are going to take a safety in the fourth round. I would love to see them take a receiver in the form of Ryan Swope, but I think they're going to take a guy like Bakari Rambo if they don't get their hands on Tyrann Mathieu. You can't take both of those guys. You got to take one or the other. If they get Mathieu, then I think they'll go in a different direction at safety, or they'll go with the receiver in round 4. If they get a guy like Poyer or Webb, then they go Bakari Rambo in the fourth round, and I think that's most likely to occur. They go Rambo in the fourth round. You look at the fifth round, LeVar Edwards, LSU, defensive end, 6'4", 277, 280 pounds, can get after the quarterback, needs to be a little bit more stout in the run game, but I think he's a great situational guy along your defensive line, can be a rotational depth guy on the defensive line, could maybe even work his way into the starting role at some point in his career. Who knows? You look at the other fifth-round pick that we have at 162, cornerback. I think that pick will be a corner in the draft. I think it's going to be a guy like Brandon McGee out of Miami. Don't be surprised if the Redskins take a tight end somewhere in this draft. Not knowing what's going to happen with Fred Davis next year, they might be looking to draft someone. But I think that they're going to steer clear of tight end. But don't be surprised if the Redskins select a tight end somewhere in the middle of this draft. But I like McGee at the cornerback position. I think he's going to be the second, fifth-round selection for the Redskins. You look at sixth round, Denard Robinson, for me, is the guy that I think they will target in the sixth round if he is available. Very athletic, gives you different looks on the offense. And, again, we play a very gadgety offense. And so with that spread look, I think Denard Robinson adds value to your football team. I look for him to be a guy that the Redskins might target in the sixth round, as well as Vincent Painter, a tackle out of Virginia Tech, very athletic, very good fit for the zone blocking scheme that the Redskins employ. I think he would be a guy that they might look at as well. You look at Vince Williams, linebacker out of Florida State in the seventh round, would be the Redskins' final pick in the draft at 228. Inside linebacker, don't think he's a starter in this league. Again, you normally don't get starting caliber players in the seventh round. It's not impossible to have happen, but it normally does not occur. We see it all the time with guys who are undrafted free agents that come in and start for football teams, but I don't think we're getting a starting player. I think we're getting a depth guy at the back of the draft, potentially a core special teamer in Vince Williams, linebacker out of Florida State. And to me, that is the 2013 NFL Draft for the Washington Redskins. And we'll see how it all plays out. And I'd be very excited if two of my picks were correct, because the Redskins could go in so many different directions. This draft is so deep with talent. Not upper echelon talent at the top of the draft, but it's a lot of depth in this draft. And so the Redskins could go in so many different ways, in so many different avenues. There are so many different ways they could go and explore. I just don't know what the Redskins are going to do in this draft, but that's what I think they're going to do. We'll see what happens. I'm a Redskins fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Redskins spirit will never die. My Redskins spirit will never fold. Till we meet again, hail to the Redskins. Let's have a fun draft. Let's have a productive draft. We'll come back and break it down when it's all said and done. Have a good one.
The Redskins Report.